All righty, welcome everyone. Today we are talking about how to beat ransomware, how to protect your business. Before we get started, I'm going to be going over some steps that you can take to protect your business. Do me a favor and grab something to write with. Also, if everyone can check, make sure I can be heard and are on mute. And lastly, chat feature, go ahead and show me that enter in there, find it at the bottom, and say that you got good feedback, can hear you, all that. Great, cool, thank you. So let's start out with the obvious question. Why the heck do you care about what I have to say? Why should you believe me? Well, first, our security team has audited over 2,000 networks in the past 12 months, and I can tell where people are going wrong when it comes to protecting themselves and being able to make sure that they are protected from ransomware. And also, security team, we're on a mission to help protect 1 million people. Me? Well, I'm just a simple man trying to make my way in the universe. I do a lot of speaking. I'm authoring a lot, even currently, working on some smaller content, but at the moment, but a lot of community involvement as well. As far as my background, just real quick, 23 years in the industry, started out as a computer consultant, and the evolution of the business from managed services to technology success, where most in the industry, I'm a recovering adrenaline junkie, and so adrenaline junkies, that's what this industry is made of. We're firefighters to the core, so overcoming that has been a process, for sure, to get on the other side where we spend more time preventing the problem, a dedicated process, dedicated people. And then that enables us then to have valuable actual consulting with business consultants. We're still a support company. We provide a lot of cybersecurity protections and processes, but at the core, it's the preventative process that is enabling all of it. And then my personal mission, positively and directly impact and protect 250 small and medium businesses and organizations through our proven and secure process. This impacts their clients, their employees, and their families. And the reason why I believe that these organizations have and are the greatest potential power for good in our world today. All righty. What we're going to talk about here today to beat ransomware. First of all, what is it? We'll talk about the top attack vectors, basically things to look out for, potential business implications. What has happened, just the facts. I'm not here to, do the scarce tactics or anything like that, just trying to present the facts so that we can all be aware. And welcome there, everyone who's just joining as well. Current and emerging ransomware trends. So talk a little bit about like what's up and coming, some new stuff. Gone are the days of old of just, asking a few $100s for the key to unencrypt your files, for better, for worse. And then some misconceptions related to ransomware. We'll debunk some myths out there, and then best practices. If something happens, this portion of the webinar can be handy reference potentially for you. All right, so that's our outline for today. So first of all, what is ransomware? All right, picture this. Your computer's files are suddenly encrypted, and the only way to unlock them is pay a ransom. This is the dark world of ransomware. It's the type of malware, bad software that holds your data hostage until you cough up the cash. And then even if you do pay, there's no guarantee you'll get your files back. In fact, some attackers are notorious for taking money and escaping. It's a scary thought. I mean, obviously they want you to believe that, and so they try to hold it up. So there's better than a 50% chance from the statistics we've seen that you will be able to unencrypt if you pay them. But it's we want to work together to protect ourselves from digital thievery. And the one thing that I want to say is, especially to, any business owners on the call, like, well, how can I know? How can I know that we're protected? So at the end of the webinar, I'll give you some simple way that you can tell if all these things are in place. We'll get a little technical. I'll try to explain when we do get in the weeds a little bit, but bear with me, and I'll keep it simple and high level, and pull it together in the end. So top attack vectors. So first of all, email phishing. Everyone's aware of the emails that you've gotten. Well, back in the day, and I've heard it's still out there. The Nigerian prince offering you 10 grand to hold on to it because he's got $1 million for you coming, or ask for $10,000 from you because he's got $1 million to send you. They're becoming a lot less obvious, a lot more tricky. They're becoming very sophisticated. They know you. They know who in your organization holds the keys to the money and to the decisions, and they are writing customized emails to get in there. And so we got to all keep up on our game. What was the one I saw yesterday that came in? Something around, hey, your password needs changing. Click here if you want to keep the same password. I'm like, okay, that's a little obvious, but yeah. So it's a type of social engineering. It's trying to look legitimate, and it's trying to trick you into divulging a username and password. Seems to be the most common, or just get a backdoor into your system and then wait and watch your mailbox, try to see if they can change things like an invoice a routing number in an invoice number, and then even change the phone number on the vendor invoice email and change, what's getting saved. So if once they're in there, they try to do some tricks to get more money out, type thing. But phishing seems to be the largest vector the way it starts. A little bit more obscure technically, but it's a big deal because it's pretty well documented that this is a huge loophole for a lot. So it's an old school way of getting remote access to a server or to a network. So if you wanted to remote in and have a session on your server, RDP, or remote desktop protocol, enabled you to have a virtual desktop. And the reason why this was popular about 15 years ago, 10 to 15 years ago, is that a range when this is quite popular, because the small business server from Microsoft, the Windows server, small business server, had RDP and the ability to do this included in it. And maybe you were just being redirected to your actual computer, and then you could have a remote session that way. But you had to have it. Well, the default way was to have this open port on your firewall, just ingress, allow you to do your username and password, and then you're in your computer, right? So that, because it's ingress from anywhere by default, and it's entire way in, those need to be protected. So an unsecured RDP port, it's not unsecured to do it. It's just unsecured to do it without VPN, without multi-factor authentication and the like, right? So unsecured RDP ports is one way in. Software patching vulnerabilities. Everyone's got a hole in their software. It's just how long it takes for it to be discovered, exploited in the wild, and then patched, right? The most dangerous ones are the ones that face the internet directly, because like they can be exploited as soon as the hackers know about it and as soon as they find that you have it. And some of this is robo software finding it, right? But a lot of our stuff is internal, right? So it's making sure things are patched so that if somebody, if you accidentally follow through with the email phishing, they can't get really far because everything's all locked down and secured, and all the vulnerabilities and exploits that are known on the software are not available. And that's an ongoing process. I mean, sometimes Microsoft and others, 3CX is a VoIP provider, only a few weeks ago, had a piece of software and their backdoor, like it was technically not exposed to the internet, but it was. like your protections on your network didn't protect you from this vulnerability. If you had the software, you had to shut it down right away and replace it with their patched version. So these are things that, as the IT team, as the security team, has to be kept up with to make sure. Malicious websites, driving by a website that doesn't isn't up to snuff, can leave some software behind for sure. Obviously, there's some protections that can help from this, and it's not, Google does a pretty good job if you're using them as a search engine to send you to sites that are legit and safe. But again, just like all the protections, none of them are fail-safe or fail-proof. And then last, some pop-ups and ads. This is a little bit more prevalent, 5-10 years ago, sort of thing, but it's still a thing. Again, depends on where you are on the internet. So potential business implications for ransomware. Obviously, downtime and disruption, pretty well known, and this is what most people are thinking of when they think about, I need to protect myself from ransomware because of how it's going to impact the business. So regardless of whether the ransom's paid or not, it's going to cause that disruption. And then maybe there's irreversible damage as well, because sometimes backups are only of the data and they're encrypting other things and making computers unusable. And most people aren't backing up every single computer state every single day. It's mostly the server, mostly the things that run the network and the core data. So if things get encrypted on your computer, obviously rebuilding all the computers can be difficult in a timely fashion, right? And systems will have to be shut down too if something gets infected, so that it doesn't infect further, right? So that's the idea of the quarantine. You have the flu, you go home and in the isolated bedroom. So that computer can't be used. The person who was using that computer, if you catch it in time and quickly, and it's only affecting one machine, but still that is disruption and downtime. Lost files, wages, and equipment. Obviously, this is kind of waterfall from what I just said. If you can't get it back, if you don't have good backups or your backups, right, your backups taken nightly, ransomware happens at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, that's 6 hours potentially productive day gone, even with good backups in that sense. So the time, obviously the wages, and then equipment. If you need to get machines to replace, that can be expensive as well. High recovery costs. Forensics, for example, if you need somebody to come in to find out where it came from and how it happened. Cyber insurance does pay for forensics, but again, you don't want to be submitting a claim if you don't have to. And then you may also need to invest in security measures to prevent the similar attacks in the future, right? The recovery, now you have to do it. Before it was optional, depending on your insurer and depending on the kind of compliances that you have. Other collateral damage could be reputation damage, loss of customers. They need to be protected, and certain clients, might be like, well, you said you were more protected than this. Reputation can be challenged, and then if you are under regulation and compliance, regulatory fines could happen. If identity theft happens, you could be subject to fines and penalties, for example. Now we'll hit some current and emerging trends. Supply chain attacks. This is where software that you are using, that software vendor gets compromised and challenged, or even a provider that you use, their software that they use can be. So it's supply chain, right? We're going down the chain. So the criminals are targeting weak links in order to expand the attack radius. And then you get this domino effect. If they can target the less secure partners or vendors, cyber criminals can access larger companies' sensitive data, such as intellectual property, trade secrets, or customer information. Double extortion techniques. So again, if a hacker gets in the system and unbeknownst, they want to lurk. They want to try to get as much out of this as possible. Ransomware is actually the last thing they're doing these days. The first thing is trying to get as much information, trying to get the company to pay a fake invoice or change the routing information on an invoice of a legitimate transaction. And then even if, wire information is changed, even putting a phone number in that email so that then when they call, they're confirming, is this the wiring information, the new wire information? They say, yep, all set. 40, 50, $100,000 is transferred. And then, the finance department doesn't know about it until that actual vendor says, when are you going to pay? I said, we paid. Now there's a problem. So that's first goal or second result that a hacker is looking for. Like third result, all right, now let's encrypt everything, tie things up. But on the way, the double extortion here is where it's like, all right, well, we're going to hold your things in ransom, but actually we already stole all your information, so we have it. So if you want it back or you don't want us to release it on the web, and there's a recent news story, a hospital that was like, putting their nose in the air saying, no, we're not going to pay it. No, we're not going to do it, whatever. And, patient information was released on the dark web. So yeah, it's a nasty tactic for sure. And then ransomware as a service. It's very fascinating. So the same things that we do in the legitimate industries are being done on the more nefarious industries. So roll up a service that has software included, and you pay me a low monthly fee, and I'll give you the software that you need, right? This is what the hacker mafia or whatever is putting together. So you can, for one low price of $17.89 a month, you can have these tools to go out and find your own targets to ransomware and the like. So ransomware as a service is out there. And then SMBs, or small and medium businesses, they're increasingly being targeted. Gone are the days when you could say, oh, I'm too small, I'm not on the radar. If anyone has a presence, especially the smaller ones, because they have learned that we, as the smaller businesses, right, the community, just in general has less budget for security. Small businesses aren't doing as much and are slower to act on the security measures. And so the hackers know that if I can get, $10,000 amongst multiple companies is a lot easier than getting $100,000 from one, because that larger one is going to have the protections, right? So they're spending more time, and there's more people spending the time. So a couple top misconceptions. My backups will get me back up and running if you are testing your backups on a regular basis. If you're doing a full fire drill, it's like, all right, let's pretend the server's not there. Let's pretend, everything in our cloud shared workspace, Google Drive or Azure or SharePoint. Let's role play that it's all gone. Now go. How long is it going to take us to get it back? And does it actually all come back in the way we want? Can we connect to it? And so forth. Like if you don't know what that is, then already it's going to be 2 to 3 days if your backups are working. Some backups can do this better. Some backups test this nightly and give a screenshot of, hey, this is what your server looked like last night before the backup. It booted successfully in this virtual environment. So there's ways to test this automatically in a automated fashion, but there's also a full fire drill to do on a regular basis to know that they actually work. So that's the first piece. Like backups get you back up and running. It doesn't stop the time, the time it's going to take to do that. But you need the comprehensive backup plan, and they know, the hackers know that your backups are key to you not paying the ransom. So if they can get in and compromise the backups, delete them, whatever, corrupt them, and plant a time bomb in them so that, as your backups, you go back, all your backups are bad because you can't restore it without the ransomware being instantly turned on, for example. Like if those measures are being done, then obviously, it's harder and harder to recover. So it's got to have some ransomware aware backups to help with that. So that's one piece. Next misconception, antivirus software provides complete protection. Well, if it's called antivirus software, it's based on virus signatures. And usually when signatures by these days, as soon as signatures are presented, the hackers are already onto the next exploit. So we need better ways of protecting. So antivirus is still needed for some of those things, but we need to get to better types of protections that are looking at the behavior, not just a signature, right? And then if my business gets hit, I'll pay the ransom and move on. One of the top misconceptions, you don't know. There's not a guarantee, like we said. And then we also don't want to encourage this type of behavior. So those are two biggies that we want to just air out there. And then, like I said, my business isn't a target for ransomware. I just talked about that a little bit, but they're targeting businesses of all size right now. It's essential to have a proactive security strategy that includes regular employee training and updated security measures to protect against these attacks. So as I'm leaning into there, what are the best practices for prevention and detection? We can't assume that we will be able to keep up the defenses. We have to assume breach. We have to know what our processes are when things happen, less and less if, but when, and how to minimize these sort of incidents. Employees will still click on something. We want to make sure that it's just the employee being impacted, not their computer, not their data, not their mailbox. A little bit of cleanup and we're done. Like we want to keep things to that minimal sort of piece. So what can we do? So we make sure we update software regularly, make sure we install the latest patches. There's a process for that for all of your software, not just Windows, not just Microsoft, but everything. It's got to be a process built for that. Don't click on links or open attachments unless you know where it's coming from, you know what it is, you're expecting it, right? There's a way, if you hover, if it is expected and it's coming from what you expect, you can always confirm that it wasn't manipulated by hovering over the link, and it shows you what the link actually is. Backup data regularly, like we're talking about, you got to have a comprehensive data plan, not just local, but offsite and tested, and ransomware aware backups. Security awareness training, so this is how the team, the employees, can be made aware of the latest trends and tested on if they're going to click on the phish emails and the like. So you need that. Endpoint detection and response. I was talking about antivirus. It doesn't go the way of the dodo necessarily, but it is being supplanted quickly by what is called EDR, endpoint detection and response. The software is looking at the behavior now of the computer. And there's behavior that, so one of the common software loopholes is what's called a memory buffer overflow. Something very technical, but nobody using no normal software is using a memory buffer overflow. So when something starts to use a memory buffer overflow, bridge out, this is probably malicious software. We're going to stop that. And that's what an EDR does. It's not a signature. It's not a virus signature. It's not the effect of a virus. And it's saying, okay, we got to stop the virus because, hey, that file is infected, because it's a process, right? So detecting that behavior is what it's about today. Good password hygiene. Strongly recommend password managers. Strongly recommend having good passwords, password change policy enforced, especially your main passwords for your cloud-based email, your access to the network, and any of the high security, high risk, high exposure type systems. Make sure that there is strong hygiene process around that. Routine vulnerability scanning. You might have patched a vulnerability in software yesterday, but there's new stuff that comes along all the time. Making sure you have a regular, like, is that still patched one? Because sometimes things get reinstalled, part of just normal process, and making sure that new vulnerabilities are not missed. Network monitoring and segmentation. So monitoring on a regular basis from a security perspective. There's lots of monitoring, right? Hardware performance, software performance, Windows performance, making sure the disk isn't full, right? So that's network monitoring. But going to the security level, having a security operations center, or even something, a step down from that, a little bit more passive, but alerting based type things. And then segmentation here is talking about not everybody needs access to the HR folder, right? So segment off, or not everyone needs access to the whole server. And so the customer service just is connected over here, and the phones don't need to talk to the data server. Everything can be segmented. If one piece gets compromised, not everything goes down. So if you get hit, somebody gets hit, so you want to disconnect the device from the network to prevent the malware from spreading. Can't use it on the network. Got to disconnect it quickly. Isolate. Again, any portion of the network that might have been exposed to, we only want to assume that they're cleaned once we confirm that they are clean. Extra scans come back clean and the like. Make sure the backups are stored separately. This is a little bit more ahead of time if something happens, but you always need to make sure that the integrity of the data is intact. And then don't trust the network or part of the network until it can be cleared and certified. Collect and secure whatever of the data. If you have partial, even only partial pieces in the backup, you might need it for the forensics and the future use. Collecting all available log information. Again, the thing you're doing ahead of time is setting up logging for firewalls and security systems that they're captured, but you need to gather that. You're going to want to have systems that enable that to be gathered. And then any accounts related to it, obviously you're going to need to change the usernames or change the passwords once the system's off and disconnected. And then you want to go back, depending, again, what date, you have to predate any nefarious activity. Not necessarily the easiest. It does take some time for that. So so there might be questions. How do I know if these things are placed? And you can figure this out simply and easily, but how? I have a good IT team, I have a good IT person, good IT company, but your IT people cannot proofread their own work. Just like in marketing, the same person that writes it cannot be the one that proofreads it, because again, being too close to the paper, gotta have third party. So let's knock out ransomware. Get a free third party ransomware protection assessment, groffnetworks.com/protect. Tackling ransomware on your own can be challenging. That's where we can come in to help. We can ensure that you put up a tough fight against hackers and keep them firmly at bay. First question you might have is, am I the right person for this? It's not my job, but keeping a company secure is everyone's responsibility, even if it's just taking the simple steps I shared with you. Are you completely protected? I'm already protected. I have someone that does this. Are you absolutely sure you are completely protected from ransomware and hackers? If you'd love to be able to answer yes, I am secure. Simple step for you. Well, you have to get your IT department involved. Be careful when responding to this. It's the best way I found it. It's up to you. If you'd like to know how they're actually doing, you could do the evaluation without engaging them. if you like to give them a chance to prepare themselves, then by all means. But the question you have is, do you think hackers give your IT department a chance to prepare before they hack your network? And then we won't need administrative credentials for this third-party assessment. And we will not need to install any software. So we won't be changing any settings. It will not analyze your network, meet with you, review the results, and then give you simple steps you can take to protect yourself and your data. Review that in plain English and help you from the executive perspective to be able to go forward. What's the catch? There is one. We can't do this for everyone. We only have one free assessment. We're able to give out some every month, a couple every month, as a part of our mission to help protect 1 million people. We do have one left for this. Anyone after that one left signs up, we can put you on the wait list for the next free one, or you can pay for the assessment. Usually they're $5,600 to $8,600 for this type of analysis. But why am I doing this for free? Again, we're part of a security team that's mission is to help protect 1 million people. So tackling ransomware on your own, again, can be challenging. That's where we can come in handy. And I'll stop the recording and we can open it up to any questions.